Hi, my name is Jeff Chandler, and I'd like to welcome you to Pre-AP Chemistry at Rockwell High School. We'd like to start all of our presentation off with a quote, and this one is a famous one by Richard Feynman. It says, "We are at the very beginning of time for the human race. It is not unreasonable that we grapple with problems, but there are tens of thousands of years in the future. Our responsibility is to do what we can, to learn what we can, improve the solutions, and pass them on." So that's a famous quote by Richard Feynman with regards to education. So the first thing I want to do is I want to introduce myself. My name is Jeff Chandler. You can contact me at jeffrey.chandler@rockwellisd.org. And then you also see the other pre-AP chemistry teacher that's here. Her name is Stephanie Lewis, and she's actually in the room right next door to mine. The reason why I put both of our information is up there is if I am not available for whatever reason, if you need help with something, please feel free to contact Miss Lewis. Their classes are doing very similar work, so she should be able to help you just as well as I can. So please feel free to go back and forth between the teachers based on your schedule. Chemistry is the study of matter and how it changes. So that's what we're going to look at. That's going to be our focus all year is matter and how it changes. Now, you should be familiar with the concept of matter already, but in regards to the study of matter and how it changes, we're going to look at atomic models, chemical reactions, thermodynamics, gas laws, and solutions. Now, you should have a somewhat of an understanding of what these things are, but we're going to go into them in a lot more detail this year than you have in middle school. This class is designed around active learner-centered instruction. What that means is that students are responsible for coming to class with a base knowledge that the teacher can extend and apply to specific situations. I'm sure you've all been in a class before where you've taken the class and you said, all we did was go over definitions and then the test looked completely different. This class is not going to be that way. You are responsible for learning the base definitions and the base understanding, and the teacher is going to be responsible for teaching you how to apply that content and how to extend that content beyond the initial book or video presentation. Okay, so you are going to have to take on the role of an independent learner, and you're going to use the choice of either using the class provided video instructions or the class provided textbook to achieve your initial base knowledge. So, like I said, the instructor will focus on the application of this knowledge. So if I ask, okay, we're going to do a titration of an acid and a base today, and then you don't know what an acid or a base is, at that point it's going to be very difficult for you to extend and apply. So the reason why we do this is it actually allows us to expand the scope of material. So we're not going to get to a surface level of knowledge. We're going to hopefully get to the deeper level of knowledge where you understand the reasons behind the material. This is also going to allow us to have more hands-on labs and activities in which we can actually demonstrate and apply these particular concepts. Okay, chemistry is going to be a very hands-on class where we're going to be in lab 2 to 3 days a week. This also is going to encourage the development of collaboration and cooperation with your peers. You're going to have to work together on some of the problems that we're going to do because it's going to require input from multiple people. Another reason why we want to do this is because it actually improves retention. Okay, this is a famous pyramid of learning in which students generally remember about 5% of what's lectured. Okay, if you do reading, it's 10%. If you do audio visual, which is where we're looking at with the videos, it's 20%. You may be saying, well, 20%, that's not great. Why would I want to do these videos if I'm only going to retain 20%? And the answer is, well, it's 4 times better than the lecture. So we've actually hopefully improved the retention by having you do the videos instead of the lecture. But the real reason why we want to do this is because we are going to hit these higher level things in class. The discussion group, the practice by doing, which means labs, the teach others and the immediate use. We're not going to be really doing a lot of teaching others, but we're going to do a lot of the immediate use where, hey, you've learned this, now let's do it in the lab. Hey, you've learned this, now let's apply it here. And so that's the hope, is that we can hit the higher levels of the pyramid where you can retain more of the information than you would in a traditional lecture setting. So pre-AP has higher expectation levels than a regular class. So to kind of illustrate these expectations, I've written some questions from biology, which almost everybody should have taken last year. It says, describe the function of the mitochondria in a cell. That is considered to be a lower level question in pre-AP. That would be the equivalent of about a 70. It's a basic definition question in which you're just repeating to me information that I've already told you, that you've learned in a video, that you've read in the textbook, but there's nothing deeper. It's just basically regurgitating information. The pre-AP proficient level questions, which is where everybody's really shooting for us to be proficient, is at a 90%. Okay, those are where you have to extend and apply the definitions. So the example of this one says, discuss the similarities and differences in the development of mitochondria and chloroplasts. So you have to know information definitions about two things, and then you have to look at the similarities and differences. You could do a Venn diagram to explain this. You could write a paragraph to explain this, but you're comparing and contrasting. So it's a deeper level of understanding than just basically regurgitating the information. And then the highest level that we expect for people who are looking to get 100 is what's called a mastery level question. Now, these mastery level questions really require that you extend the information to a situation in which you've never seen before. You probably never talked about, it says a cell has a mutation that prevents a functioning mitochondria. So in other words, the mitochondria doesn't work. So the question is what changes would be necessary for the cell to survive? If you truly understand what the mitochondria does in the body, and you're aware of kind of the cellular functions, you should be able to say, okay, if there isn't a cellular mitochondria in the cell, then this would have to increase or this would have to decrease. It shows a true mastery not only of this particular concept, but applying the concept and extending it to other things that you have learned. So if you are looking to get 100 in this class, those are the types of questions that you have that are called the mastery level questions. Okay, now when we go through our questions and we go through what's called our interactive practice, you will have experience in which the teacher guides you through instruction and developing PreAP and mastery. This class distinguishes between three different types of before or after school help. The first one is tutorials. Tutorials are a chance for you to go over or review or be exposed to the material in a different way. Now, tutorials are primarily for if you don't understand the concepts that are involved that we go over in class. It's a chance for you to go over those concepts. Now, tutorials is definitely not for making up work or for working on homework assignments in which you just need help on one particular problem. Tutorials is designed for people who don't understand the concepts. Now, in addition to tutorials, there are homework help days. Now, homework help days are where students have the opportunity to work together in groups or with teachers' guidance on trying to solve specific homework questions. Now, homework questions come from UT Quest, which you guys are all familiar with from the summer assignment. Now, students, you should have an understanding of the material before you come to a homework help session. This is not a chance for you to come in and say, hey, what is number 6? Okay, you say, hey, I was doing number 6 and I got this far, but it doesn't seem to work. So that's the kind of help you get in a homework help situation. Okay, students who don't understand the material itself should end up going to a tutorial session instead. And now these are going to be distinguished, and there will be a calendar provided to you in class so you can know which days to come for homework help and which days to come for tutorials. There's a final one that's the makeup work. Now, periodically you're going to miss work in class, so you're going to have to make up that work. Now, you need to make up that work on the scheduled makeup work days. So you're not going to come into tutorials and then say, can I make up this? The reason why is we'll be going over the concepts that you may be having to take a quiz or a test on, and so that's not fair to everyone else around you. So quizzes and tests and makeup work, those sorts of things need to be scheduled, and they need to be on particular days. Like I said, you will get a master schedule that will show you the days that both myself and Miss Lewis are available, and you are free to either work with her for a tutorial session or do a makeup work with me. It doesn't matter who you go to, the assignments will be the same. Grades are, according to the Rockwell ISD policy, there's a 30%, 70% split between the daily work and test categories. You do get 5 points added to your GPA, but that's not for eligibility purposes, and it will never appear on a report card, just your transcript. Okay, as far as daily work is concerned, the first one is a notes check. The notes check, there are two options. You can use the fill in the blank notes that are provided for the videos, or you can use the textbook Cornell note structure that will also be provided to you in class. I don't care which one you use, whichever one helps you learn the material before you come to class. Okay, another example of daily work is UT Quest. The UT Quest is the online homework system. You can have up to 2 assignments that are due a week. Generally, there's between 1 and 2, just depending on how the schedule works. You do get up to 7 chances to answer a question correctly, and you can actually there's a small penalty if you miss the question 1 or 2 or 3 times before getting it correct. But the emphasis is on learning how to do the problem as you work through the assignment. So when you get to a test, you'll be ready for that. Now, next you have the laboratory notebook check, and this is really kind of a key idea. We're going to do labs. This is a lab-intensive course. You're going to do 2 to 3 labs a week. Your notebook will be randomly picked up, and I don't mean the entire class. I mean I can call 5 people and say, Joe, John, so and so, you guys turn in your notebooks and do it now, and I can check it for a grade. There is no warning. There is no, I don't have my notebook ready or it's not with me. These are grades that are trying to ensure that you're following the lab and you're learning everything you did from the lab. Next, you have a binder check, which the binder check is also required that you organize and keep your papers because of the cumulative nature of this class. Once again, binders will be randomly picked up in small batches. So I can pick any 5 people at random and say, you 5 turn in your binders. It is not acceptable to say, my binder's not ready. At that point, it will be considered a late grade. Test grades. So now that we go to test grades, there are several different test grades that we need to go over. The first one is quizzes. Quizzes are going to be done after every lesson cycle. And a lesson cycle consists of a lab, a section of notes, going over stuff with an interactive practice in class, and then a quiz. Now, we did change this. This is actually going to end up being a 70 is the developing, and 90 is the proficient, and then mastery is 100%. Now, the quizzes will count as 0.5 test grades. So if you were to look in the grade book and see a 45 for a quiz grade, that's actually good because it means 45 out of 50, or you'd get a 90%. So just be aware when you're looking at the grade book to make sure that you got a 45 if it's a 90 or if it's actually a 45. Okay. There's also unit tests. At the conclusion of every unit, you'll have a PreAP specific district provided assessment. Okay, so this is everybody across the district will take the same unit test and it will count as one test grade. At the conclusion of every grading term, you will take a 2-part PreAP test that will consist of multiple choice and free response. It'll be 2 separate days, and since it's a 2-day test, it will count as 2 test grades, or you can think of it as 1 grade for the multiple choice and 1 grade for the free response. But that'll be at the end of every grading term. And finally, we may occasionally have projects and formal reports. I think there's about 4 or 5 that we do throughout the course of the year. Depending on the scope of the project, it could be 1, 2, 3 test grades. But before the project is even explained to you, you'll have a rubric that'll tell you what exactly it will count as and move on from there. The absence policy, you really need to work to make sure that you're here as much as possible. I understand that with extracurricular absences that you're going to be gone for this and that, but whenever you are gone, be it sick or extracurricular absences, you need to plan on attending both a tutorial and a makeup work session. Okay, the reason why is you're going to miss some of the information that you're going to have explained to you, and generally you're going to miss a lab or some sort of activity that you needed to do in class. So for every day that you miss, you need to plan on coming to 2 before or after school sessions. Okay, so whenever you miss a quiz or a test, you will take that quiz immediately on your return. So if we have a test scheduled for Wednesday and you miss Wednesday, you will take the test on Thursday. Another thing that's really important is if we have a test scheduled for Wednesday and you miss Tuesday, you will take the test on Wednesday. The tests are designed so that no new material will be covered the day before the test or 2 days before the test. Okay, if there's ever an issue, feel free to talk to either myself or Miss Lewis and we will work with you. But the general rule is you will take the test immediately on your return. Okay, as far as redo work is concerned, if you have work that isn't up to your standards, one of the things that we want to encourage students to do with the redo policy is we want to encourage you to redo the UT Quest as much as possible because that is your primary practice for what you're going to be tested on. So, not just students who get below a 70, but every student is available to redo a UT Quest assignment. And if they do redo the UT Quest assignment, they can get half of their points back on the original assignment. So an example is if you get a 90, if you redo the assignment, then you can get up to a 95. Okay, that is open to everybody. It is also highly encouraged for people who score below a 70, but it is open to everybody. As far as retaking tests are concerned, you may retake a test after you submit the retest procedure sheet. The retest procedure sheet is designed to help the student learn the material that they were initially not unsuccessful with. Students will not be able to retest until they complete that sheet, and what it does is it makes sure that they didn't fail any quizzes before then. If they did, they can redo the quizzes. If they didn't have any zeros, and if they had zeros, they can redo those assignments. But the emphasis is on going to make sure that they understand the material prior to retesting. Any other redo assignments will be averaged with the original grade for a maximum of a 70. That's according to the Rockwell ISD policy. Late work policy. Any student that has late work, it'll be with a redo policy. They get a 0 for the original grade, and then They can average it with whatever grade they get up to a 70. Academic dishonesty, okay, it will not be tolerated. The two most common forms of academic dishonesty that we come across are discussing, sharing information about an assessment, be it a quiz or a test, prior to the completion of all tests. It is unfortunate that during fourth period, students come up to me and say, hey, how do you do this type of question? Which is the exact same question that's on the test, and the only reason why they would know that is if somebody had told them. That is considered academic dishonesty, and if that comes up, that will result in you getting a 0 for your assignment. Also, using an electronic device during the test for any reason. So if you're using anything other than a calculator, I don't care if you're done, if you're playing a game, that constitutes academic dishonesty, because I don't know if you're texting answers that you wrote on the desk or playing a game. I have no idea. So both of those will result in a 0 score and then a redo assignment according to the grading policy. Here are some key websites. You have Skyward, you have the class websites. The class websites are changing, so those will be made available to students and parents as soon as they are up and ready to go. Homework will be done on UT Quest, which is at that link below. And finally, you have eBackpack, which we will post copies of materials if you lose your packet or you can't find your notes, those sorts of things. They'll be posted on eBackpack. Okay, supplies, you do need a composition notebook. You do need one 2-inch binder with 12 dividers. There are 12 units that we'll be covering, so one divider for each unit. And you do need a scientific calculator. I have a few calculators, but the problem we run into is there are not enough calculators for everybody for quizzes and tests, and calculators may not be shared during a quiz or a test. So it's unfortunate, but if we run into a situation where you depend on a calculator in class and there's not one for you, then you take the quiz or the test without a calculator. So I would highly encourage you to buy a scientific calculator, which is one of these two. You can find those at Target or Walmart or Office Depot or Office Max, generally for less than $10. If you do have a graphing calculator already because of math for whatever reason, you are of course able to use a graphing calculator from, there's no restrictions on graphing calculators. Finally, we want to thank you for taking this course. It is a challenging course. We have very high expectations, but we are here, Ms. Lewis and myself are here to help you meet those high expectations.
I woke up this morning and the world was gray. Hadn't seen the sun since they hauled me away.